Hello, and thank you for joining part 2 of our 4-part Infor XA web series. Today's webinar will be on Birst Business Intelligence. Similar to last time, we will be utilizing the question box within GoToMeeting, so please ask your questions through there throughout the presentation, and either they will be answered throughout or we will have a Q&A at the end. Today, kicking us off is going to be Rick Altano, and then we will have a live presentation with Danny. Rick, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you, Elsa. Hi, everybody. We're going to go through today a couple of things. First, I'm going to introduce Birst Business Intelligence to you so that you can see what the product is. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it analyzes the data. Then I'm going to talk about a interface point that Guide Technologies has authored to be able to read the XA database. And finally, as most of you know me, I handle this from the business side. Assuming we have some technical questions, excuse me, Danny is going to be here and he's going to actually go through a short demo of the product. And if anybody wants to know more detail about how things are developed or how that works, he will be available to answer those questions. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump right on in. Again, I am Rick Altano with Guide Technologies. Most of the people on the phone I know, but here's my information and it'll be available to you if you have any questions. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, what is business intelligence and what is the difference between it and XA or any other ERP. Basically, an ERP is a transaction-based database. You want to see, as the question says, every shipment for the last 20 years, no problem. I can show you that detail by detail. Every labor transaction, every order history, anything that you want to see. But when you ask a question like, gee, show me the usage of this product by month with seasonality, what is it that you do at that point? Well, generally, most people download the data to Excel. They summarize it in the way that they want to do, and then they put a graph across it. Now, what you just did was create a business intelligence database. You converted transaction-based data into a summary format that you wanted to see in a graphical form. That's what business intelligence does. 10 years ago, if you were buying into the business intelligence systems that were out there, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement because you were developing these data and copying data and converting data, and it was very laborious, and it was something that took a great deal of time to get down. The modern business intelligence systems do those summaries for you based on the graphs that you want to see. That's what I'm going to show you through this process. So as we're looking at these are all XA screens. Every single thing that you see is transactional data. All of our histories are here, all the information we need. It's just not summarized in a format that we want to see it. Now, why does business intelligence take time to develop? Because every one of you on this phone call and every one of our customers wants to see their data slightly different. They want to see graphical information. They want it summarized differently. Some people want it by reps, some people by territory, some people by state, some people, however you want to define it, it's a meaningful information to you. So what we need to do is be able to take this information and convert it in a format that you can see. So as I just got done saying, here is an IDF list screen. It is part of an XA database. What do we do to get information out of it? Download that to Excel. Whether it was Excel, whether it was Cognos, whether it was something called a data lake, which we'll get into in a second, one way or another, we convert that information into another database where we can print an Excel spreadsheet or apply that logic. This piece right there, that conversion process, is what modern technology takes care of. It does it for us. And so I want to walk through that. Now, first of all, where does this fit into Infor? For those of you that have seen this pancake slide, I'm not going to go into this in detail right now. This is the technology stack that Infor is building their entire product on. Infor Operating Services at the base, that is where you're getting all of your Mingle, all of your Ion, all of the functions, every product that you own from Infor, if you buy it, you're going to get Infor OS. Industry features, that's your ERP, that's XA. Now, through this stack, of course, it's on the cloud. We can go and tie into multiple networks. Every single product that Infor has is going to be tied into a business intelligence database. One of the reasons that that's so important is because, first of all, it gives us the information that we've been lacking for years. Let's face it, XA has lots and lots of data, but oftentimes it was missing information. So the analytics gives us that information, but it also sets us up to be able to use artificial intelligence. By being able to manipulate and use the data in a standard format, Coleman, which is Infor's artificial intelligence system, is going to be able to use that data moving forward. I am not getting into artificial intelligence today. In fact, Infor is just getting into this. They're coming out with some neat new stuff, but over the next couple of years, I think you're going to be seeing some major improvements in artificial intelligence and how it affects us in manufacturing. But that's another webinar for another day. So let's look at where we go with this strategy. We want to have analytics. With that, Infor owns Birst. Birst is considered one of the top tier business intelligence systems on the market. It is in the cloud. Data is managed through the cloud. The process is managed through the cloud. That does not mean that your system needs to be in the cloud. We support hybrid systems through this process. But this is a cloud-based product. It was born there. It was written that way. It wasn't converted. So it's native to all the requirements, all the functions that we see in that area. So from there, it addresses all the different architectures. Remember Infor's technology stack. We, of course, know that our iSeries systems are the best, and that's why we're all using them. But this supports whether it's Microsoft or Oracle or any other database that's out there. It addresses all those architectures because it lives in the cloud. I mentioned it's one of the top ones that are out there. You guys can read the screen. I'm not going to go through all the bullets. Bottom line is Birst is a very, very nice tool. And if you have not seen a demo of this, I highly recommend, after you see what we're going to show you today, arrange an individual demo for your own customer, for your own company. Oftentimes, we can actually do a demo using your data. So it's quite impressive when you see it with your own information on there. So from there, what is Birst? Next generation business intelligence. It is a networked system. So this is the marketing slide from Infor. I copied it right off of their database. So it is a part of what it is that you're trying to sell. It is not a part of XA. It is a separate platform. You license it separately, you install it separately, but it will use your XA database, but it will use any other database that you want to use also. So we're not limited to one environment or one iSeries. You can use any database, any hardware that you have. So if you were looking at information and you had, pick something, a budget that's in Excel and it's not in your XA system, I can read that too and incorporate it into Birst. If you have multiple XA environments, I can do that. If you have multiple XA and other Infor products or SAP, anybody else environments, we can read their data too. So we can incorporate all that and give you a single source of your reporting capability. The key thing to remember here is that we're looking at your entire database. We're not just looking at a sales analysis database. Now, most of us instinctively think sales analysis, geez, how much of this did I sell? What are my top customers, etc. But Birst goes across everything that's in your system. We already have this installed at clients that are using it for manufacturing metrics on their shop floor, putting them up on big TV screens. We're using this a number of different ways. This is live in some of our customers already, so we know it works. And it can read the entire database to give you the information that you need to see. So what does this stuff look like? The point is we want to get away from that information, that data tracking that we've seen, and we want to go to a graphical interface. So we convert that data to information. This happens to be a copy of one of our customers. The graphs, the charts, the things that you want to analyze are completely up to you. In this particular case, the customer name is under the gray, so that when you see a gray box or something up there, all we're doing is, excuse me, respecting his privacy. But what we have here, in this particular case, is shipments year over year. We have graphical analysis, we have order volumes, we have the different metrics that were relevant to the customer. And in every one of these cases, as you go in and subset the data or select certain amounts of data that you want to see for a certain territory, for a certain rep, it will go in and modify all the graphs that you see on the screen. You can drill into the graphs and get to the data. So this is intended, as a dashboard is, to be something you turn on in the morning, you turn on your computer, you sit down, you grab your cup of coffee, and just like when you drove to work this morning, you know, you glance down at your dashboard while you were driving, you check your speed limit, you don't have any warning lights on, everything looks good, and you go back to driving. The point of a dashboard is to show you where there might be problems. It's not necessarily the detail, it's the summary. But if you have something that you flag, if certain things go down below a certain amount, if you want to flash this, you could literally, if you wanted to, put a traffic signal on your screen. So it would be red, yellow, green. If everything's green, boom, move on. But what you can do is identify what those warning signals are. You find a problem, then drill into it. But if there's not a problem, we don't need to spend any more time. That's the idea of a dashboard. Go through it quickly, be able to see what it is. Now, this is shipments year over year. As I mentioned, it's not just sales. Although, here I have another example of sales history. I'll have more examples coming up. But we have different types of graphs, different types of formats, the things that you want to see. There's no need to format this and modify this data. This can come directly out of the XA database. So you don't need to go to Excel and summarize. Birst is going to do that for you. You can describe the graphs that you want to see, the results that you want to see. You describe the source of the data, and it creates it. In this particular case, I'm looking at marketing information rather than sales information. So quoting, average deal size, number of leads. So I can go through these processes. Where are my leads coming from? I can lay these across internet maps and be able to see where the volume of information is coming from. Any number of things that I want to see. We can read this from any type of structured file. Of course, we're talking about XA. That's what my emphasis is. But as you're looking at this, you have information in other files also. We can read that information and incorporate it into this process. So one of the key things here then is going to be identifying what that source data is. Anybody here that is technical, anybody here from an IT department knows that we have a lot of files inside of XA. So simply the fact that identifying the source statement, source data, is not as easy as it sounds. So we need to understand what we're looking for and how we get into it. How do you buy Birst from Infor? The key is, it's like buying Excel. When you buy Excel, it doesn't come with any spreadsheets. You create the spreadsheets. You create the dashboards. You create the metrics that you want to see. So it doesn't come pre-populated. And remember, Birst is being sold across the entire Infor product line. So there aren't necessarily default standards for if you're running XA or Sightline or LN or any of the other products. It is easy to use, easy to develop. I told you we can actually do demos using your data. So once you learn how to use this process, creating the metrics are really quite simple. But how do you get there? Well, since we can read all these databases and XA is not built into it, what do we need to do to be able to get that data in? And that's where Guide has written a tool, we call it ATX, that interfaces to XA for you. We would include this as a bundle. You would get the whole thing as a package if you were interested in moving forward. But we can provide this interface for you, and I'm going to describe what that looks like. So as we're doing this, How do we create those dashboards? What is ATX? Now, this is a small listing of data files out of XA. This is 62 pages, 50 plus files per page. This, when I just said, Birst can read your data files, this is what it would do. Anybody out there that does queries and needs to know, well, geez, when I want to get this customer line item, I have to link these 4 files, and I link them by item, and then I want to pull in the order data, so I have to link the header file, and I pull this in, and there's a lot of work to do, even though you're getting information from predefined files. Guess what? Infor's already done that for us. Using the IDF on the right-hand side, I have an object called customer orders and quotes. That object already linked the dozens of files that are appropriate for a customer order. We don't have to do that. Is what Birst provides for us. That's what ATX provides for Birst. So Guide has written a tool that reads the IDF objects, all the files, all the objects, all the fields, and uses the object format to load Birst for you. What that means is you can go to a customer order object. You don't have to link any of those files. All that work's been done for you. Now remember, you also have Enterprise Integrator. You've added 5 custom fields to this file, and you've added a new object because you had something you wanted to track that wasn't in XA. Because this product, ATX, goes across your entire IDF database, all your custom objects and custom fields will be included in Birst. Nothing you have to do. That's part of the advantage of being able to utilize the IDF. We talk about how it's release independent because we can go grab this information and use it the way you want to see it. Well, we're going to do the same thing for Birst. We're going to grab that information that you've created using Enterprise Integrator. We're going to download it and put it into this process. So I'm going to give you some examples and show you what this means. But let's start out by saying I wanted to pull out all the objects, all the files that had to do with purchasing. All these dots on your screen right now represent a different object in purchasing. Now, how do these get linked together? Infor's already done this with the IDF, and here's the links. Every object that belongs to another object is already a part of the system. So when I'm looking at a purchase order header and I want to bring up the purchase order line items and I want to bring in the blanket releases, all these are different files. I want to bring up the receipts I've already made against that. Again, more files. You don't have to put that together. That linkage is already here. So as I'm putting these together, I'm going to zoom in on it because these are just little dots and you can't see what they are. But when I zoom in, you can see these are the file names and the lines that go to the different connections that exist within those files. This is a Birst screen. So the ATX system creates these links for you from your XA environment. But this is a Birst screen, and you can see how your database is linked. Now, if I want to zoom in on one object instead of just on the overall thing, in this particular case, I want to look at a vendor. Here's all the links that are available to a vendor. Now, as a user, you probably will never go to these screens. As an IT person, you might go to these screens to see how they're set up and how to manage that process. But this is what ATX does. You don't need to do this. If you purchase Birst without ATX, you can create these links. You can go right to the files. But then as Infor has a release, as things get maintained, you've been creating these logical steps. We can simply reprocess ATX. You can do it every night if you want. There's no need. What it's doing is it's creating the links. It's not creating the data. You're actually going to the source data inside of Birst, which is an important point. When you're looking at your dashboards, you're not looking at a copy of data that was made last night. You are going to the data, which is getting summarized and coming to you nearly online. So it is It is something that's analyzed and processed instantaneously. Now, just to give you an example, a minute ago I was talking, when I showed you the file list out of the system, I showed you customer order files. Customer order files are much more complex than purchasing, so let me show you what that is. In this particular case, here's the customer order model. A few more objects, a few more requirements in there, and if I start linking all those objects together, there's a lot of lines in there. Now, you can manage that yourself, but there's no need. Infor has done it for you. We at Guide are not saying we're managing that for you. We are using the logic that Infor created. So we can go directly to their development logic to create this function. Now, just for the fun of it at this point, I was talking to Danny and I said, geez, if this is this complicated just for customer orders, what does the entire XA database look like? And these are all the objects in the XA database. I'm not sure the logic of where the triangles versus the circle comes from. It's not really important. But I said, okay, let's look at it from a circle standpoint. What are the links? Holy cow. It gets pretty hectic pretty fast. I zoomed in on a piece of it right in through here just so I could see it. And you can see you hit some of these objects. There are just dozens and dozens and dozens of connections. So big believer in ATX. When Birst first came out, I was talking to our development team saying, how are we going to use this for our customers? I was really under the impression that this was going to be a pretty decent sized servicing engagement for every customer that wanted to do this. But Danny, who's the primary person who helped develop this tool that you're going to be talking to in a few minutes, was able to get this in such a way that this is going to be a user tool. Today, as I'm talking to you, it is still an IT tool. But we are finishing this product out, so you're going to be able to install it and run it without having that technical knowledge. Right now, it still needs a front end. It needs some user interface tools to make it run smoother. The logic works. This is actually running at customers. So we are going to be making some drastic improvements to this, but anybody who's interested in this, it is available now as a service offering. It should be very short order to be a standard product that we're going to sell. So let's think about now what I just showed you. We talked about what business intelligence is and what the dashboards are. We talked about how we had to go get source data. I'm showing you source data here, and then we go out and create these graphs. That can sound very complicated. Let's simplify it. If you understand this screen in IDF, if you can pull up a list window, I can create a Birst dashboard across that information. Now, this didn't come from the list window. It came from the objects that created that list window. But that's how simple this is. In 10 minutes, I'm hitting this at a very high level, and it might sound confusing. So I just want to re-simplify this. When this is all said and done, using ATX in Birst, we can read the objects, the IDF objects that are in XA, and be able to create your dashboards. Very powerful. Now, this is great if you have one environment. A lot of our customers have more than one environment, and many of them have more than one ERP. So the thing that you have to remember about Birst, yes, any customer that uses IDF, these are all Infor products that use IDF. ATX is going to work, and we can read directly into Birst. But Infor also supports, in their Infor operating services, Data Vault and Data Lake. Now, I'm not going to get into differences of what those are and why we use one over the other, but the bottom line is, let's say you have two environments that are running XA for two different customers. One's in China, one's in the United States, and by the way, you have another company that you just bought, and it's down in Arizona, and they're running Epicor. Okay, so it's a third-party product. What we're saying here is by using a data vault or a data lake, you can download the appropriate information from all those different environments so it's in a common location, and we can use Birst off that common location to get all your company's information. So we can use these data vaults or data lakes to consolidate information for you to give you information quicker into your business intelligence system. Now, a minute ago, I just got done telling you I can look at Birst and it goes directly to my XA database. If I'm dealing one-on-one, that's true. If I'm dealing through a data vault or a data lake where I have to convert data to make it common, I have different part numbers in different systems, or I have different currencies in different systems, and there's certain things I have to do to standardize my data. There I have a conversion process, but we support all of that. So that's a part of ION. I can publish my XA to the data vault. Standard functionality is a part of ION, is a part of Infor operating services. So we're not talking about something new and fantastic that you have to invent in order to be able to use this tool. You can populate these files and then use the results any way you want. Now, again, that's only necessary if you have multiple environments or multiple systems, multiple ERPs. If you have one company or simply one environment, even if you have multiple locations, I can go directly from that XA database into Birst. So, summarizing, what does that mean to you? If you understand this, if you understand how to open an object, these are objects. If you know how to select fields, so you go to your preferences and you select which fields you want to see. If you know how to add a field in Enterprise Integrator, you have all the technical knowledge you need to be able to load Birst. Now, Birst is a user-capable business intelligence system, but I'm not going to tell you that every one of your users are going to be developing dashboards. Let's be more realistic than that. We're going to have some specialized people that know how to do that. But it is not necessarily an IT programming requirement either. So I just want to make sure that you understand how easy this is to set up. So if I have that information, I can turn that into dashboards. And notice on this dashboard, I'm not limiting it to my PC. I've got my pad, I've got my cell phone. I can make this information mobile. Take it to where I need it to see it. And again, a reminder, we're not limited to sales history. You want to look at CRM, you want to look at material requirements, supply chain, financial, etc. Anything that's in the IDF, you can get access through ATX. That, let's see, I'm going on 2:30. I'm almost exactly on schedule. Wanted to give you an overview of what the product is. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to turn this over to Danny. He can actually show you the product. If you have any questions, please don't forget that you can put that into the chat box in the system, and Elsa will handle that at the end. Danny's going to take about 15 minutes now and be able to do a demo of the actual product. And from that point, we should then have a few minutes at the end for questions that we can talk over. So Danny, I've just turned this over to you. Share your screen and we are all set.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Make sure my screen is coming through. All right. So we're going to take a quick look at Birst. This here is a dashboard that's focused on CRM. This is a demo dashboard. It's back-ended by Salesforce in this case. I'm accessing it through just Firefox on Chrome, Firefox, Edge, any browser will do. Okay. Real quick in the landscape here, it doesn't look like much, right? It looks like a picture. That's intentional. We're focused on the content, not the application. So across the top, we have a toolbar here with some options. We can send links to the dashboard. We can set up some alerts. Look at the logs that are going on, export it to PDF or PowerPoint. Once we filter, we can set bookmarks. And then, of course, there's a filter card for applying filters. Okay. When we design dashboards, we want to try to employ a process called value-based design. And this particular dashboard is a good example of value-based design in action. So let's jump in and take a look. But before we do, just take a quick look. This is a quick glance type dashboard, right? It's the kind you pull up on your phone, or when you want to see how you're performing just overall, that quick snapshot. So let's jump in and we'll go to the marketing ROI. I'll give that just a second to load up here. You can see we've got a number of objects here. So let's just take a quick look. Value-based design being employed here, we want to focus on the golden ratio of view, which is kind of pointing to the top left of the screen here. So this is a marketing monitor, an ROI. So ROI, we want that to be the biggest thing on the screen, right? And then we follow that with the constituents that make up that value. So these drive our key value indicators. How's money being spent on marketing activities? What are we getting for that? What's our lead to win ratio, right? And then what's the overall average deal size? Dashboards also are good at pointing out outliers. So as we look across this dashboard, something we notice is we've got an outlier here. Any chart can be blown up to full screen so that you can see it better. And within the data, we can click to look deeper. So what we did is we applied our sponsored event filter here. And what we see now is a dashboard that's filtered on sponsored event. All of our charts are filtered on that. When you create a filter, it doesn't have to filter every object in the chart. You can pick and choose the ones that it does. But looking across our dashboard here, we now see by region, we've got another outlier in play, right? Southeast, they're actually doing pretty good. Let's go take a look there. And if we drop out our sponsored event, we can look at Southeast overall. So they're doing really good. Sponsored events obviously are still the outlier here with a lower value. Okay. So let's reset that. Again, as we look across this dashboard, we've got some other content here, web content that can be brought in. This could be just web pages that can be embedded. It could also be, say you use a CRM system like Salesforce, that can be embedded directly as well. Okay. So let's talk about average deal size. So this is a value that, and again, talking about value-based design, this is a value that not only drives the ROI, but it influences our bottom line. So let's click that to see more. And what this is going to do is take us across to another dashboard. All right, revenue. So this is a dashboard that might be seen by sales executives, right? Here, they're not caring about ROI, they're compensated by revenue. And of course, those are the values that they have control of, like the number of deals and the win rate and the average deal size. It's important to note here that this value matched our prior screen. So using Birst, we get something that is a single version of truth, right? In the typical landscape, the sales director, VP has her reports, and the sales manager has their report, and all the sales reps have their own reports, and everybody's tracking things differently. And when they all come together, then we're trying to figure out who does what. So single version of truth across the enterprise. So like before, we have a data-rich dashboard, and these images here are supporting our additional other values. For example, the deals closed, those in the commit phase, and those in the pipeline, broken down a different way by region, shown over here. Any of these can be filtered on. So, for example, if we wanted to go back to just our Midwest region, we can do that simply by clicking. Okay. And we're back. As we scroll down, we see some typical charts that are often requested. The Excel type chart, the wall of numbers, and we can even put in some indicators that tell us whether we're doing good or bad based on values. And then the print ready report. This is a product within Birst called Designer. You can create these print ready type crystal report type like reports, banded reports. For formatted reports. So if you have reporting needs that you're struggling and you want to have a single version of truth, you can put those together in here and make those available. As we go through here some more, as we keep drilling down, value-based design focuses on the top level, working our way down to the detail. So as we keep going and we look at analysis by team, we're looking at performance here, right? And we're getting a lot more specific. We have our sales reps here. And as a sales rep, I can come in here and say, I'm Tobin here. I can see a dashboard that's made just for me. How about that? If I go back, I can also look at my colleagues. How am I doing compared to them? And of course, we saw that in the summary. So let's look at the detail. At the same time, we could also make it secure these dashboards, data level security. So if I'm Carly, I can make it so that only Carly can see her data. Or Carly can see her team's data if she's a manager, for example. All within the realm of possibilities. All right. So we've got a lot of reports here, but these are all in the dashboard, right? I have some data that I want to add to this. It's not ERP data. It's data that my team and I were spitballing. We got it in Excel, and how do we bring that in? Well, let's go do that. So within Birst, quick landscape here. We started with our dashboards. And this is a typical landing place for most users to consume the information. Visualizer is a tool that we use to create all of these charts. And then Designer, which I mentioned, which are the print ready reports. Modeler is the tool for bringing in information into Birst and relating it together. And then a new feature called networking, which allows us to take information that was built up in a dashboard or as a group and share that with the rest of the organization. Picking and choosing which columns are shared and how they're analyzed. Okay. And then all the other typical things that we would expect in an application, links to help, support, settings, applying themes like colors, and those can be applied globally as well. So let's hop into Visualizer here. Again, a simple interface, right? Think about the first time, if you're an Excel user, think about the first time you used Excel. When you first go in, sure, there's a lot of buttons, but what does all of that do? Here we have a very clean interface, again, focused on the content, but the Birst does a really good job of hiding its complexity. There's a lot under the covers here, and levers and tools that we can use for building reports. When we first start up a report, or visualizer here, we can choose from a number of different reports. We default to the column, but we can do column, bar, line and spline, right, smooth line, different types of area charts, point, scatter, and bubble, pie charts, our funnels, which we saw, Table, just a standard table, all the numbers. Crosstabs similar to a pivot table, and those can be exported to Excel pivot tables. Heat maps, waterfall charts, which are, if you ever tried to create one of those in Excel, it's a bit of a challenge. And then geomaps. Everybody loves geomaps, simply because they're a pain to put together. The tools that Birst has put together here for us are really fantastic. Okay. So as promised, let's create a quick report here. So again, this is sales data. And so let's grab our expected amount, and we'll look at that by year and quarter. Okay, that's pretty good just on its own, right? We got there pretty quick. If you had to pull all this data into Excel and then build it up, it'd probably take a little bit longer. But here it's right at your fingertips. Okay, let's add a little more to this. Let's look at our managers. Let's grab our region manager. So now our data is broken down by quarter by region manager, and we're looking again at performance, right? Taking one step further, we can break this down into separate charts by region. So now we across the top, we have our Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, West, broken down with our individual sales. Okay. So we have some data we want to bring in, and it's sales targets by region. Let's see. So all I'm going to do, so say we were spitballing in Excel, right? We were in the boardroom and we came up with this, and now we want to apply it. And you know, with the knowledge of how, we could have done this right in the boardroom. So I'm just going to go grab a file here. And it's just an Excel file that I'm going to drag and drop in. And that'll load, that'll upload to Birst. And while that's loading, you may have some questions about how data gets into Birst and things like that. And the short answer is there's an agent that runs behind your network and communicates with Birst. Birst lives in the cloud, of course, and there is an on-premise option available if that's of interest. But I recommend the cloud. That way your platform is just always up to date. So again, our data loaded here. And so getting it into Birst, if you do have any questions about that, just let us know, and we'll get those answered for you. In my Excel file here, I've got 3 columns: just the region, the sales target, and the month that we want to apply that to. Okay. Actually, let's click quarters. I'm going to hop over to blending here, and this is where we're going to tie that Excel file into our data. And the columns we need here are region, and from our Excel file, we're going to grab region as well. Or sorry, we grabbed region from the Excel file here. We're grabbing region here from our data. In the screen, we can choose. Right now, this is creating an inner join, but there are options to create left joins, etc. as you proceed. Okay. So what happened here? We imported data into Birst, but is it affecting the warehouse? Is it doing anything to the IT control data? No, it's not. What we've done is created a little satellite or bridge to the main space with our information, which again we can later share. So we're done here. I'm going to bring that in. This is going to go through and update our subject area with columns. All right. So now we have our subject area here and our regional targets that we brought in. If we go back, up here, if you're familiar with the columns that you're looking for, you can just simply search. So the columns in our file were sales target as an amount, the region, and a month. So let's add this measure in. Okay, so that's added to our chart. Not real clear on what's going on here. We've got a couple axes. So let's flip that over. We're going to make our sales target a line, make it easier to compare. How about that? Still not quite right with our axes, but we can merge those axes. If we were doing something, these are all amounts, right? If we were doing an amount and say an expected shipment quantity as units, we could move that axis over on the other side and it would scale separately to the data. But here we quickly see the performance of our targets to the actuals or the expected amounts. So it's just a quick dirty analysis using data that is in our Birst controlled environment. We spitballed some information and brought it in, and we could then save this and throw it right onto the dashboard. In fact, we have just a minute, so let's do that. I'm going to save this off. You can see it's full file structure, everything's saved in the cloud. Other tools, especially tools that are like desktop related, you end up having all these files you have to manage, and, imports and export files. That's what's great about Birst is everything's just consolidated in one place. Okay, so let's call this our sales targets by region. I can hear my CPU spinning up. I think it might be virus scan day. All right, so I saved that off. We can hop back to our dashboard. And let's say we wanted to add a new one because we can. Give it a name. And then different set of tools here than we saw before, right? These are tools for editing the dashboard. So data-driven dashboards allows us to show reports based on certain events and data. And we can also send notifications based on those. Tools for adding existing reports. New report will take us back to Visualizer. A KPI, or like those objects that we saw with the rolled up information based on a measure. Images, of course, our filters that we've been using. Buttons to link between dashboards or to go off somewhere else. Web page content and HTML. That bubble chart that we saw on that first dashboard is HTML based on D3JS type reports, which use the data in Birst, but it's a different way to graphically represent the reports. Okay. So look at our existing report. And we can throw that in, move it around. And we have all sorts of controls here. So as I picked on this, of course, we've got a whole new menu. We can set the fonts of how these are delivered, the font size, colors, and set a border color. So you really graphically, you can make Birst what you want it to be visually and with the data. So you get an end-to-end experience that is great for IT and it's great for users. All right. So with that, I am going to pass it back to Rick, and we'll cover any questions you have. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Danny. I am always impressed when I watch him go through these processes because I know how I've seen the demos before. I know how easy those things are. And the thing to remember when you're looking at that is he did a demo for 15 minutes. He went through and he showed you a dashboard. He brought in data from an Excel spreadsheet, merged it into a dashboard, and created a new one. That whole demo was 15 minutes. So it just lets you know when you have the knowledge, when you have the background of how this tool works, it is very quick, it is very easy, and very powerful. With that being said, Elsa, I will turn this back over to you to see if you have any questions. We've been going at this for 50 minutes, so we'll see if there's anything that we can answer.
Okay. First one that came through is a question regarding security, and it was asked, is security administrated within Birst, or does it use XA security?
You have to have, I'm going to let Danny answer the question about Birst. You have to have the XA security to be able to issue the data. But Danny, I'll let you handle the security question.
Sure. So there's a bunch of different layers of security within Birst. The report level security, where we're saying you can see these reports within a given dashboard collection. We can also say certain users can see these dashboards and others can't, and whichever the next one is first, it just comes up to them. Then there's also data level security, which is a deeper implementation, which I described using the sales managers, for example, and our sales reps, where they can only see their information. If you wanted to create a Birst dashboard set that you wanted to supply to folks outside of your organization, like vendors, you can do that and limit the information that they can see so that it's only their record.
Okay. Then another question, Rick, this might be for you, is regards to the ATX connector. We're looking for some information on when it is available, where can we find that? Do we have a timeline on when it will be available?
We are actively working on that right now. The product is working. So all the things that I showed you, all those connectors, actually are created by our IT team. Like I said, they are making it a product, and I would like to have this done in the next 30 days or so, but we are also working with Infor to finalize a couple of issues. So I don't have an exact date, but the way you do that is contact your account executive. If you are with Guide, that's either going to be Chuck, Andrew, or Randy, and they will set up the appropriate interviews and discussions to be able to move this thing forward. If you are with another affiliate and would like to contact me directly, that's fine. I will coordinate that with your affiliate and make sure that we get the right information to you. I wish I had an answer right now to say, I have this ready, I'm going to send it out. But we are very excited about where this product is. We wanted to show you that it's working right now, but we do have to finalize a couple of issues before it's a product, but I do expect it to be in very short order. If anybody is moving forward with Birst right now, we can move and work with you on that right now. It just requires a little bit more technical setup.
Okay. With that, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. This webinar was recorded, and we'll be sending out the recording in the next couple of days. And as Rick said, if there are any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to Rick or Danny or myself, and we can get you in contact with the right person at Guide. And we hope to see you on January 8th for our Part 3, XA in the Cloud, more than just a platform. Thank you very much for joining. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.